Where Nothing Bleeds by Interstellarism on AO3. Episode 3, Chapter 3. Synchronized. It's the first time he's eaten real food. Well, as real as they could get. Ryland said that these were still the rations from his ship, and yet they tasted so much better than the flavorless bricks the SM-13 had for substance. He didn't even have enough for it to last a week. No point in wasting resources. They probably assumed he wouldn't live long enough to run out anyways. He takes a bite of the rehydrated sausages and scrambled eggs. It's glorious. This was the kind of food that would have made him believe in God if he was still in that sub. How is it? He looked up. Ryland walks in, wearing a smile on his face. He always had a bit of a smile on his face. Is it because he was a teacher? He mentioned he used to teach grade schoolers earlier. Is that what all grade school teachers look like? Always smiling? Like they're always primed for you to ask them something? It's good. He responds gruffly. Do you have more? Oh, yeah, plenty. The Hail Mary was a crew of 3 people, so there's plenty of food to go around for a while. I'm glad I get to share it now. 3 people. Then why was he alone? Should I ask him? It felt like a deeply personal question. If the other crew members weren't here, then it's better to assume they were dead. Otherwise, they'd be here to see the person they saved. And it seemed like whenever Ryland talked about we, he usually meant me and Rocky. It's been so long since he's had a proper conversation with another human being who isn't behind a broken, staticky speaker. But it's good to finally speak to a face. A real pretty face at that. Tender-hearted, gorgeous blonde. Seriously, that eel fish fuck must have fried his brain, because he can't explain why 60% of his active thoughts were about how hot Ryland was. It should be about the situation. He was on a goddamn alien planet, for fuck's sake. There were rock aliens running around. He's so far from Earth, he might as well be dead. And yet his mind can't help but focus on the hot blonde teacher in front of him. Maybe it's a side effect of the trauma. He was trapped in that rusty piece of shit for so long that the first drop of kindness from another living soul started feeling like a shot of heroin. That's how it felt. Simon never missed how the scientist's voice dips in certain sentences, like whenever he asked him about his injuries or how life was on Eden. He didn't have many answers for him about the latter. He could only catch glimpses of it himself. Grace was always stupidly gentle with him. He laughs at Simon's dry, uninteresting responses. He nods in curiosity every time Simon explains something about the SM-13. He was vigilant with being the one to bring him water and food instead of leaving it for the robot to do. He hadn't left the bed since he woke up, and while Grace respected his privacy, he also stopped by frequently just to check up on him. Normally, he would hate being fussed over so frequently, but it was the opposite of suffocating. Over the course of a few days, he finds himself looking forward to seeing the teacher enter the room. Each glimpse of his smile felt like the perfect appetizer to the meals he ate. As stupidly corny as that sounded, that's how he felt. Nourishment. He doesn't know if he could trust all this yet. For all he knows, it could still be one massive lie the C.O.I created. Maybe Ryland was one big hallucination concocted from his greatest desires, although he wouldn't know why Rocky would be a part of those desires. Either way, he finds himself fighting with the reality of the situation. Wherever he was, this was better than the C.O.I. This was better than Earth, too. How would Earth even receive someone like him? He doesn't imagine he'd be hailed as a hero. Someone like him didn't make a good saint. There was nothing saintly about what he did in that submarine. Maybe the SM-13 was a lie. Maybe the stars never vanished in the first place. How could they have? Ryland was here. Rocky's planet was here. Even if it had been completely real to Simon at the time, there was no distributing what was happening in the present. Maybe it was time to let go of the past and accept where he was. It was about time he asked Ryland about himself. He knew about the Petroba line, about Astrophage, about Telseti. He knew about his rather complex relationship with Rocky, too. It was one of the many things Ryland was eager to ramble about. And once he got started with it, you couldn't get him to stop. Simon didn't mind, this time. Now that he wasn't panicking about where he was or what happened to him, he could finally pay attention to Ryland's info dump without letting them go over his head. Hey. Ryland looks up at him from where he was sitting, across the foot of the bed, just like always, writing on a clipboard, grading students, he called it. Apparently, he was also teaching Eridian kids. He must be one hell of a teacher to be teaching a bunch of alien creatures about science. A handsome, talented science with a gift of teaching. Someone like him was far better suited to be called a hero. The Hail Mary had 3 people on board. Simon starts. He sees Grace brace himself, pursing his lips. He's about to touch on a hard topic. Yeah, it was a skeleton crew of 3 people. It was the bare minimum for what they needed for Project Hail Mary. They needed a scientist, an engineer, and a pilot. Simon sees the look on his face waver. He's never seen him look like that before. Something in his stomach twists. They, He doesn't break eye contact with him, even if Grace finds it hard to look him in the eye. They couldn't just take volunteers from Earth. Strat, or, the big boss lady that led the project, she worked with researchers to develop a plan for humans to live long enough to make it to Cell-Steady without killing each other. They came up with the induced coma, but they found out that only a few select people have the coma-resistant gene that could actually manage to survive it. Being in a coma for that long is very dangerous, so they needed to make sure the people they sent wouldn't die prematurely. So they chose 4 candidates. I had to teach those 4 about astrophage biology. He had to teach them about astrophage biology. You weren't part of the crew. He let out a small, dry laugh. He sees the look in Grace's eyes, and part of him regrets asking that question. No, I wasn't. Then why the hell was he here? Why was he so far from home? Simon's brows furrow, and he keeps explaining. They had a very limited pool of candidates. Only 1 in 7,000 people actually have the coma-resistant gene. And not only that, they needed to be trained scientists and astronauts that had intimate knowledge about the project. So that's what was bothering him. He was a middle school teacher. Why was he in space? One day, while we were out of the lab, an explosion happened. They miscalculated the amount of astrophage by a milligram instead of a nanogram, and it killed 2 candidates with those very specific qualifications that were supposed to be selected for the mission. Oh, he's piecing it together now. Dread pulls in his stomach. He leans forward. We were now 2 candidates short, and there was no time left to train someone else, or scour through a pool of participants. They chose the next best option. And that was you. Simon finishes. Grace nods grimly. But you told me it was a one-way trip. They didn't send you with enough astrophage to make it back home. Grace doesn't answer him, but that was more than enough. They sent him here to die, and despite all impossibilities, Grace lived. Not only that, he saved the entire universe. It was only here where Simon realized who he was talking to. This nerdy, awkward school teacher was the reason life would keep on going. Without his sacrifice, Earth and Erid would have been done for. You're incredible. Simon huffs. Well, he could probably say it nicer, but he can't help his default tone. Grace coughs suddenly, and he swears he sees the scientist's face turn different shades of red. I wouldn't say that. It was really all rocky. Without his help, I would have been stuck out here not knowing what to do. Heroes tend to not take the credit. You're incredible. Simon pushes, stubbornly. They sent you here to die, and you did the exact opposite. Grace fidgets. Was he uncomfortable with compliments? Part of Simon didn't care. He deserved to know that. Yeah, well, I could say the same about you. I don't know what happened with the SM-13, and I don't know if we can verify the quiet rapture, but the fact that you're here means something. You learned how to navigate an ocean of blood without training, just relying on your wits. And you did it on a submarine that definitely should not have passed inspection. You survived too. He doesn't see it the same way. Sure, they were both sent out to die, but Grace had his entire world's knowledge in the palm of his hand. He told him the Hail Mary had the entire internet uploaded into its database. Not only that, but Grace knew where he was going and what his course of action was. He was naturally smart, a problem solver. Simon was none of those things. I had no idea what I was doing. Simon murmurs. I had no training. I didn't even get an orientation. I just woke up in that submarine. And I found out I couldn't get out and had to search for something I didn't even know was real. Grace is silent for a while. The display of their situation was abundantly clear. Despite how similar their circumstances were, Grace couldn't imagine going through what Simon did. And Simon doesn't know what he would even do if he had been in Grace's position. I'm sorry. He reaches forward and gently places a hand on Simon's shoulder. I'm really sorry, Simon. I can't even imagine what you went through. And frankly, from how you describe it, even just imagining it is terrifying, let alone living it. I am so sorry. Tears well up in Simon's eyes. He never realized how long he waited for someone to say that, to just understand what it was like in that submarine, searching in the depths of hell. All he could remember were people yelling at him, telling him this was how it was supposed to go, that it was for the greater good, that he had no choice, but he was going to die without ever seeing the sun again. He stares into Grace's pool of blue eyes, his bright blonde hair. The sun was right here. I just wanted to live. Simon speaks, voice trembling, more tears welling up in his eyes, throat tightening with emotions. That's all he ever really wanted, right? All he wanted was to live. I just wanted to live. I know. A breath of relief leaves him when he's enveloped by Grace's arms. Oh God, his touch, his embrace, the scent of his clothes, the warmth of the chest, the soft skin of his hands, the tightness of the hug. He doesn't know why, but the feeling of another human being's heartbeat against his own makes a dam break. He starts sputtering and sobbing like a child, wrapping his own arms around Grace's midsection. Grace's hands cup the back of Simon's own, holding him through all his trembling. He squeezes him as tight as he could. He was wary about it at first, worried that a hug would feel claustrophobic. But Simon was gripping him back just as hard. Simon buries his face in Grace's neck and just cries his heart out, letting all pained, broken sobs as the weight of the universe is finally lifted from his shoulders. He never had to see the SM-13 again. He never had to see another ocean of blood again. He was no longer constricted to disembodied voices that kept demanding the impossible of him. It was over. It was all over. He was free. Is this what freedom felt like? Being held in the arms of someone who cared? That must be it. That was what living was supposed to feel like. Simon didn't let go, and Grace stayed in place, his hands gently petting the back of Simon's head. You're here now, with me. Outside the room, Maki was watching. He sees the faint outline of the two humans embracing, and he finally realizes what a hug was supposed to look like. When their bodies press close to each other, and their heartbeats in sync. Humans were truly fascinating. Unlike the last couple episodes, I actually have notes now. For this one, there's actually something I want to touch upon and talk about since this chapter finally talks a little more of it. So Simon's reaction and kind of viewing Grace as like a savior. I want to talk about what the human brain goes through sometimes when it comes to after experiencing such horrible events. For example, an example of like a more realistic one that more people might have experienced is, I don't know, if you have a friend or, you are that friend, or you know a friend of a friend, or you just know someone who always enters toxic, horrible relationships. They never are not in that. I'm sorry if you could hear the background noise. I'm so glad they decided to be so noisy after I finished recording the principal part of the video. And now it's just the notes. But anyways, they always enter horrible toxic relationships and they never leave that. Or when they do and they enter a healthy relationship, all of a sudden they sabotage it. And they throw it away. And one from the outside might be looking in and being like, that's so stupid. Why would you do that? That was a good person. That was a good relationship. Why are you throwing it away? Sometimes some people react badly to a positive thing after having so many negatives because they're now used to the negatives. The negatives, all those horrible things, that is their base. That is their normalcy. When something good gets introduced, that is not their normalcy. And sometimes that part of their human brain taps that and goes, wrong, bad, out of the normal. It needs to go now. Because you've low-key got conditioned into expecting that the worst is the only thing you deserve, the worst is the only thing you need, the worst is the only thing that you're okay with. And anything else is weird, not okay, clearly wrong. It's something that I've experienced in passing. I had an ex of mine who all of his exes before me were shitty. They were so shitty. They were so bad. Worse than worse. And then we got into a relationship. And with all those other shitty exes, he was able to get into an actual relationship with them. With me, he was like, well, I don't know. Let's do we're not together, but we're not together, but we're not friends, but we're not friends. Like, we're best friends, but it's more than that, but it's not lovers. And I'm like, okay, all right. I now know that the perfect word for that would be queer platonic relationship. But and then we actually got together and we stayed together for like a solid couple months, and then I got dumped because for whatever reason. And then he got with someone else, this horrible person who didn't view him as him, was transphobic and honestly horrible, and then left him to go with this other person who is this person who clearly is just using him for validation and doesn't actually give a damn about him, because the second he needs something, that person just disappears and goes away because it was only ever a transaction, a one-way transaction. it was not mutual. It was not. And, you know, I would see him go through these horrible relationships after me. And I'd think, like, what did I do? Like, what did I do wrong? And, you know, I now know that I didn't do anything wrong. If anything, I was just a healthy relationship. And that scares people. That's something that's, it's unknown. The unknown scares people. And sometimes you might think, some people have this mindset of, well, I know what to expect when it's bad. When it's good, they always have that that thought in the back of their mind. When is the other shoe going to drop? And sometimes people can't handle that. And, you know, I find myself also experiencing that from time to time as well. You know, it's just what happens. And we could have definitely seen this happen to Simon, right? Simon could have had that, where he's very spectacle. In some fan fictions of Bloody Mary, he is like that. In this one, he's not. He's accepting kindness with open arms. In fact, him crying and feeling like, why am I crying? Why does it feel like this? Why does it? Well, because luckily for you, Simon, you are accepting the unknown. And in accepting the unknown, you are bonding with grace, because you know what? This is another human being who has finally shown me kindness, finally shown me care. And that is something that he's never experienced. This is like, I know it's bare minimum, but this is like above bare minimum for Simon. For Simon, this is like, holy shit, this is godly powers of affection and kindness. And, you know, so I just wanted to talk about how, you know, some minds and some people experience this differently. And I'm glad that Simon actually is able to experience this in a nice way, in the nicer one, you know, being able to accept that this kindness is here and that he doesn't have to suffer anymore as much. And that, you know, holy shit, I actually have a human being. And it's why, you know, he's like, oh my God, he's so handsome. Well, actually, no, that's just because he's handsome and attractive, but that might be multiplied because, you know, hey, this is like the first nicest thing I've had in a long while. And after having a roll of shitty moments, like say you have a horrible, terrible day, something nice could happen. And that all of a sudden, like any other typical day, it's a basic typical thing. Like you've been having the worst horrible day of your luck, but all of a sudden you find a $1 bill on the floor and all of a sudden you're like so happy. It's like, oh my God, a $1 bill, right? And then any other day where you're having a typical day and you see a $1 bill, you're like, okay, chill, a $1 bill. You're so happy, but it's not the same. It's not the same, you know, dopamine rush, because, you know, you go through so long without actually having like, you know, dopamine or serotonin like really fully introduced into your system, you know, like the happy energy, like the happy emotions. You don't really get that as much. And then all of a sudden something good happens, and then that skyrocketed up feels so much more dramatic because your baseline is so much lower than it normally would or should be. Not normally would, but normally should be. So like it's a dramatic change. 7 minutes, almost 8 minutes of me ranting about this. Thank you for listening, by the way. I will occasionally do notes like this for this fic because I've already read it, so I can't really say like, oh my God, this. Occasionally I'll do my not my opinions, but my thoughts while I was reading it, if I remember what it was, or my thoughts now, in fact. So yeah. Anyways, as always, my raindrops, make sure to eat, sleep, drink water, take your meds. Have a wonderful day or night. Links to the Discord server and socials are down in the description. Subscribe to see more of my content, and thank you so much for watching.